Good morning. This is Carrie here at your Alexander Hamilton Memorial Free Library, and I'm here today for your next installment of Oddities, Authors, and Stories. We air these programs every first Wednesday of the month on Facebook at 9 a.m. The stories are researched by Miss Jessica Brown, our staffer here at the library, who does all the research and writing. The content and information presented in this program do not represent the views or opinions of the library or its staff. Today we're going to visit about Victor Hugo, Saving Our Lady of Paris. April 15th, 2019. It was a very tragic day for both the city of Paris and for the world. The famed Notre Dame Cathedral had caught fire, causing extensive damage to the roof and the spire. Now, the western facade, where the bell tower is that most tourists recognize, that was left intact. Prior to the damage that the cathedral suffered, Notre Dame de Paris, which means Our Lady of Paris, stood as an iconic symbol of the city as much as the Arc de Triomphe and the Eiffel Tower, though it was not seen that way at all times. Part of that change in perspective, as well as interest in architecture restoration, can be attributed to Victor Hugo. The cathedral began construction around 1163 and was completed around 1260, and remains one of the finest examples of French Gothic architecture. Since 1789, Notre Dame had suffered desecration during the French Revolution. After the storming of the Bastille, the cathedral was seized by the revolutionaries and made into public property. People looted the church, melted down the treasures for their own use, and even chopped off the heads of the biblical king statues on the west facade, mistaking them for French kings. The Cult of Reason, a state-sponsored atheist group, held parties there, reveling in the death of the monarchy and blaming the Catholic Church as they felt enabled the now dead king to enslave the people. It was also at times used as a warehouse for food storage. It was under such disrepair by the time Victor Hugo had started research that the government was considering demolishing the old building, and the public saw it as nothing more than an eyesore. Hugo, though, he fell in love with the cathedral despite the incredible disrepair. He had previously written an essay called War to the Demolishers, that warned of erasing history with the destruction of France's Gothic architecture. However, Notre Dame de Paris succeeded in relaying that message, where War to the Demolishers had failed. All it took was adding a little bit of human drama to the mix. While most of us are familiar with the novel's main story of the hunchbacked bell ringer Quasimodo, the Romani Esmeralda, and priest Frollo, and the prejudices faced by the Romani people, gypsy is a derogatory term which is frequently used in the novel. Through its adaptations, the novel is more about the cathedral, so much so that she is more of a character in the story than just an old building and sanctuary for the desperate. The character drama that most audiences are familiar with is essentially background noise to Hugo's main argument about preserving French history. A bit ironic considering how much of the character drama became such a big deal in Hugo's other most well-known work, Les Miserables. Which is why Hugo was notoriously angry when English-speaking countries published his novel under the title The Hunchback of Notre Dame. He felt it missed the point of the book, and that the idea kept getting further lost as time passed and adaptations of the story focused more on the characters and the themes of injustice toward an oppressed populace that were kind of there, but in sort of a hollow way. The differences between Notre Dame de Paris and Hugo's other work, Les Miserables, in terms of how Hugo wrote character drama, shows his growth as a writer. The publication of Notre Dame de Paris not only was a bestseller, but it inspired the people of France to take interest in saving the building. Then in 1844, Jean-Baptiste Lassus and Eugène Viollet de Luc were commissioned by King Louis Philippe, the last monarch of France, who later abdicated his power in 1848, to undergo an extensive restoration of Notre Dame, which would be completed around 1864. The spire that was destroyed in the 2019 fire was the only thing that was added to the cathedral during this restoration. Quite an achievement for a time when the idea of historical preservation of architecture wasn't even a priority in France, let alone other countries. That really wouldn't come until about World War II, long after Hugo passed away in 1885. As of 2022, Notre Dame is still under reconstruction. The structure has been successfully stabilized to prevent collapse, while workers continue the incredible burden to restore this beloved building. The city of Paris, as well as the French government, hope to see the cathedral restored to its former glory, or at least a close proximity of it, by 2024, when Paris will hold the Summer Olympics. So that's just a little bit about the Notre Dame, the fire in 2019, and Victor Hugo. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed that brief story, and stay tuned for next month on the first Wednesday. We will at 9 a.m. have another edition of Oddities, Authors, and Stories. So all of you have a wonderful day.